Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
Let's get back to the Bible on August the 22nd. Job is going to continue in Job 7 and 8. And remember, he is despondent. He is going through a trial and turmoil, and yet he still remains hopeful in God. And we're going to see that. A lot of truths that we have to look at today, that we get to look at today. But let's start in the Proverbs. Proverbs 22:1. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. Favor is better than silver or gold. So remember what we've seen in Job so far. We're saying that wisdom is its own reward. And that's really the point, that Job, here he is, of course, lost everything. And then we go through this long dialogue of Job, thinking through what it means to be wise. And really in his speech and the speech of his friends, demonstrating wisdom. And so the proverb, we're living out the proverb as we encounter the life of Job. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. But let's look here at Job chapter 7 at verse 17. And here we have a reversal of a psalm that we saw earlier. Remember Psalm 8? Psalm 8 asks the question, what is man that you're mindful of him? And there's this wonder that we have in Psalm 8, this awe-inspiring wonder as we look at the heavens, consider the work of the hand of God, and then we ask, what is man that you're mindful of him, the Son of Man that you consider him? But in Job's reaction today, it's the reversal of that. Job is really saying, please leave me alone. He is asking God to leave him alone, though he's not really meaning it, and he'll get there, he'll make that clear that he doesn't really mean it. But in his asking God to leave him alone, he is highlighting God's meticulous care for him. And we can take comfort to know that our Father knows when the sparrow falls, the numbers on our hair, the numbers of hair on our head, he numbers. This God meticulously cares for us. But let's look at the text. Verse 17. What is man that you make so much of him, that you set your heart on him? Visit him every morning, test him every moment. And then he says this, how long will you not look away from me, nor leave me alone till I swallow my spit? In other words, he's saying every time I swallow, God is there. And then he asks the question, verse 21, why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? Now, his friend Bildad here, the Shuhite, is going to respond. Look at verse 5. If you will seek God, plead with the Almighty for mercy. If you're pure and upright, surely then he will rouse himself for you, restore your rightful habitation. And though your beginning was small, your latter day will be very great. Now, Bildad didn't know exactly what was going to happen. Remember, he doesn't have the position that we have. We have the ending and the beginning. We have the beginning and the ending, rather. We have God's viewpoint of why all these happenings are happening to Job. And of course, Bildad didn't know how right he was when he said it, but he was exactly right. Though your beginning was small, your latter days will be very great. And we're going to get to see that played out. And then here's the question regarding God leaving us alone. Here's why we say we don't mean it. Look at verse 11. Can papyrus grow where there is no marsh? Can reeds flourish where there is no water? While yet in flower and not cut down, they wither before any other plant. Such are the paths of all who forget God. The hope of the godless shall perish. His confidence is severed, and his trust is a spider's web. He leans against his house, but it does not stand. He lays hold of it, but it does not endure. He is a lush plant before the sun, and his shoots spread over his garden. And so there again we have a reference. We cannot forget God, otherwise we forget life. Now let's turn to Galatians 1. Let's look at verse 11. For I would have you know, brethren, that the gospel that was preached by me isn't man's gospel. I didn't receive it from any man, nor was I taught it, but I received it through a revelation of Jesus Christ. And then he goes over, he heard about his former life, verse 15, but when he who had listened to the language here and just be captivated by this God who knows our coming forth and our going out, listen to how particular this language is and find comfort in these words. But when he who had set me apart before I was born, and he who called me by his grace, was pleased to reveal his Son to me, in order that I might preach among the Gentiles, I did not immediately consult with anyone, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me, but I went into Arabia and returned again to Damascus. And some of you read that and you say, my goodness, what does that mean? And I'm right there with you. I don't know all the workings out of how we were chosen and how God set us apart before we were born. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, and I don't necessarily have to. They're not written for me to try to find out. They're written for me to have confidence in this God who has loved me before there was me. When he who had set me apart before I was born, and he who called me by his grace, was pleased to reveal his Son to me. And this is the confidence that we have, the hope that we have of what we call salvation. Salvation is simply this: God saves sinners. And of course, I was one of those sinners. You, if you are saved by grace, you were once one of those sinners, but now you have been redeemed because he set you apart before you were born, and he called you by his grace, and it pleased him to reveal his Son to you so that he could set you apart for himself and for his purpose. So let's look at Psalm 48 as we close today, in particular at verse 9 and 10. We have thought on your steadfast love, O God, which is exactly what we just did when we read Galatians. We're thinking on the steadfast love of God. As your name, O God, verse 10, so your praise reaches to the ends of the earth. Your right hand is filled with righteousness. And this is our hope today, that just his right hand is filled with righteousness. Indeed, he will always do what is right. And we have that confidence today, no matter the difficulty, no matter the adversity, even when there's joy, we trust in the steadfast love of God.